Developing news coming out today, June 27, 2025, with threats of attacks against the United States. Take a look at the latest headlines with me so you can see it for yourself. You can see here, Iranian foreign minister admits serious damage to the nuclear sites. This coming out 6 hours ago. And take a look at these headlines. Iran's Khamenei, Supreme Leader, resurfaces to warn against future U.S. attacks in his first statement since the ceasefire agreement. We're hearing there are threats against the United States and Israel for what has unfolded. And take a look here. Articles coming out about those sleeper cell attacks on U.S. soil. College campuses could be ground zero for Iranian sleeper cells plotting to harm Americans, experts warn. I'm going to be covering the details for you. As we have heard for quite some time now, the FBI warning about sleeper cell units from Iran that have made their way through the southern borders. They're here in the United States. They've located themselves in various U.S. cities, waiting to do coordinated attacks against U.S. cities. We're hearing cyber attacks, physical attacks. There's concerns about suitcase nukes or bombs that have made their way into the U.S. And right now we're hearing the warnings are on high alert with everything that has unfolded in the Middle East, with the U.S. using those bunker busters to attack those 3 nuclear sites in Iran. And I'm going to share with you the latest coming out on this, and let me know your thoughts. Do you think that this conflict in the Middle East is done? If you think so, put yes. If you think no, put no. But we're hearing the warnings are still coming out. The threats are still emerging here from the Supreme Leader just in the past 24 hours. So I'm going to dive into the latest, get you caught up on everything, play for you the video footage so you can see it for yourself. And now we're also hearing about warnings in various cities, lists coming out. We've already had FBI warnings of various cities that need to be on the lookout for sleeper cells in their cities, various cities where there are nuclear attack warnings coming out saying your city is high on the list. And some of them you might not expect because they're not densely populated, but they have major facilities, major military sites, major infrastructure elements to them that could be devastating if they got hit. So I'm going to do some more research on that, get you guys the lists so that way you know exactly what to look out for. But I'm seeing those no's pouring in as people are saying no. They don't think that we are anywhere near done with this as things are escalating right now with Iran and Israel, with tensions of warnings and threats. Now, it does appear that there is a ceasefire in place, but I see tons of no's pouring in from people saying they don't think that this is anywhere near done. Now, if that's the case, you might want to make sure, before we dive into the video footage, that you and your family are secure financially. Right now, as we're looking at global conflict, just wanted to let you guys know that you might want to invest in other assets as the dollar might be devaluing. You might want to check out my friends over at Lear Capital. You can call them 1-800-411-2430 or go to learram.com. Totally free call. They will give you free booklets, guidance. They sent over a ton of guides for me to look into silver, into gold, into using my 401k to invest in these, rolling over an IRA. I would highly recommend Lear Capital, my friends over there. You can call them now. It's totally free. I'll pin their number down below. And they have helped out several people here on my channel start investing, diversifying their portfolio into precious metals. Silver right now is very affordable, and they're projecting that it's likely going to go higher. So it might not be a bad investment, especially if we see things continue to escalate with conflicts around the world. And again, let me know, do you think this is the end of this? If you think so, put yes in the comments. If you think no, put no. And if you think no, you might want to call Lear Capital at 1-800-411-2430 or go to learram.com. You can get a free guide from them. Again, go to 1-800-411-2430 or go to learram.com to make sure that you and your family are set, just in case. Not a bad idea to have some physical metals in your portfolio. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into some of these articles and video footage so that way you can see the latest coming out, as we're hearing that we have top officials that are saying there was some severe damage that was done with the bunker busters by the United States. The Supreme Leader coming out in a speech saying something very different and also issuing out warnings and threats. And I see those no's pouring in. People are saying no, they don't think that this is over. and we're hearing the warnings of what could be coming to the United States. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this video footage just coming out in the past hour has to say regarding the Supreme Leader and his statements. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Mike Pompeo is the former Secretary of State and a Fox News contributor. Sir, thank you for joining us here today. I really appreciate it. You're the perfect person to speak to about diplomacy and intelligence, both some big issues that we're dealing with and likely will in the weeks and months and years ahead. This statement that just came out from the President of the United States about the Ayatollah, who has come up from the bunker, or at least spoken finally, saying, why would the so-called Supreme Leader, Ayatollah al-Khamenei, of the war-torn country of Iran say so blatantly and foolishly that he won the war with Israel when he knows his statement is a lie? It is not so. As a man of great faith, he is not supposed to lie. You know, this goes on and talks about how Iran needs to come back into the world order flow. The potential negotiations could be getting started at any moment now, but Iran's in a pretty difficult position. We know that horrifically there are some reports from the BBC that there are assassinations underway there in that country, that they're hunting down people concerned about intelligence failures that contributed to their potential loss in this last 12-day conflict. Your thoughts on our ability to work with Iran going forward?
Well, it's great to be with you and John. Look, the president's statement captured perfectly. He was tongue-in-cheek when he said he didn't know why he was lying. The Ayatollah and that regime have spent decades lying to their own people and to the world, and frankly to the IAEA as well, right? They've been cheating on all the commitments that they've made over all this time. So the fact that the Ayatollah would come up and try and propagandize to convince his own people that they had won something where they frankly had failed so desperately is unsurprising to me. I would also be unsurprised if the Iranians fail to take this opportunity to re-enter the president described as the world flow order, or the world order flow. They are ideologues, they are theocrats, they are thugs, they are terrorists. There is no reason to think that in spite of the fact that they are crippled, in spite of the fact that they have suffered defeats in Gaza, in southern Lebanon, in Syria, and now on their home turf, I suspect they will hew to their ideology until the last day that the regime is in place.
You know, on that note, exactly what you're talking about, they're also mixed messaging within their own country. The Ayatollah saying that the strikes did nothing significant when he talks about their nuclear facilities, and that this foreign minister that does the majority of the speaking on the world stage talks about how there was serious damage inflicted. So even there is a lack of ability to get a message straight. So how do you negotiate with a regime like that to move forward, to bring them into the world?
A couple things. First, I think you have to know where the power lies. That foreign minister who made that statement may well soon be the former foreign minister. As a result of that, you talked about the fact they're chasing people down inside the country. They are still the Ayatollah, the IRGC. The theocrats are still in charge. They still have the power. They still have the guns on the ground, and they are inflicting harm on their own citizens, reminding them, don't rise up, don't do the necessary so that you and your children's lives can be better. We're still in charge. And so we should listen to the people with power. And the folks in power have shown no willingness to acknowledge not only the failures to defend their own country and the fact that the Israelis and Americans can fly over their country freely, and that the Israelis have so clearly infiltrated their leadership apparatus, but they're going to try and stay in power just like these authoritarian regimes always do. And as a negotiator, you just need to understand that what the foreign minister said is interesting, but what the Ayatollah said is important.
Yeah, I want to get a quick question about intelligence. As the former director of the CIA, you know, there were some remarkable things that the Israelis did during those 12 days, you know, not to be, for instance, the simultaneous assassination of nuclear scientists. Now there's a big question about where uranium may be, the Iranian uranium. What is your thoughts, the likelihood that we or the Israelis know where that uranium is, given the intelligence and the operations that we saw going on over the course of those 12 days?
Look, this is an important question. The Israelis have already made a few statements about what it is they think they know. They have really talented, very capable forces. I'm sure they have folks still on the ground spread widely throughout the country. I don't know that, but I suspect that to be true. But I will say these things are, when they get dispersed, they're hard to find. I have always believed that the Iranians had things going on that no intelligence agency was aware of. They would be at low scale, but cheating nonetheless on those agreements. I suspect they've hidden some of this stuff, not just in the last few days, but over the last year, so that they would retain some remnants of their capability. But we should not mistake what they might have left for the massive damage that was done to their program and the massive damage that's been done to the regime over the past days and weeks and months. We should be very proud of what our military did. They accomplished an awful lot. Then we should be mindful that the Iranian regime still retains power today and still has the capacity to inflict some harm on the West.
Something that we are definitely watching. Secretary Mike Pompeo, thank you very much.
There you heard him say that they still have the ability to inflict harm on the West. And so let me know your thoughts. We're still hearing that right now as the Supreme Leader is coming out and warning about threats against the United States and against Israel. Somebody asked in the chat, they asked, do you think that Israel is still under the threat right now from Iran of potential attacks? To which my thought would be yes. Even though this has come to an end, they're still shouting death to America, death to Israel. They're calling us the big and little Satan. But let's take a look at this article coming out with more information as to what they're finding has unfolded with those nuclear facilities in Iran. Iranian foreign minister admits serious damage to the nuclear sites. This coming out 6 hours ago says Iran's foreign minister had admitted that excessive and serious damage was done to the country's nuclear sites in the recent U.S. and Israeli bombings. Abbas Araghchi told the state broadcaster on Thursday yesterday evening that an assessment of the damage is being carried out by the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran. But just hours earlier, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, said that the strikes did not disrupt the country's nuclear program. Khamenei was responding to U.S. President Donald Trump's assertion that the bombs had, quote, totally obliterated 3 nuclear sites. Now, Khamenei said that the U.S. attacks had failed to accomplish anything significant. Now, the supreme leader, who has been hiding since the war with Israel began on the 13th of June, insists that Trump had exaggerated the impacts of the bombs and declared victory over the U.S. and Israel. So the supreme leader is saying that Iran defeated Israel and the United States. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And he made this statement while hiding in his bunker where he has been for about 2 weeks. But Araghchi's remarks create a different impression. The foreign minister also said that there were no plans to resume nuclear talks with the United States. Iran canceled a scheduled 6th round of talks when Israel began its attacks. Now, I would like to state clearly that no agreement, arrangement, or conversation has been made to start new negotiations. He added that the government was examining what was in the interest of the Iranian people, saying its approach to diplomacy will take a new form. He did not explain what he meant. Freedom, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. There is only one way to survive beyond earthly existence, and that is living our lives for our Lord and Savior. He is my choice for eternal peace. Amen to that, Freedom. Thank you for the $10 super chat, and thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that a ton. Now, reading on, it says, in an attempt to bring Iran back to the negotiating table, the Trump administration has discussed the possibility of helping Iran access $30 billion to build a civilian energy-producing nuclear program, easing sanctions and freeing up billions of dollars in restricted Iranian funds, CNN reports. Wow. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you think that Donald Trump should be doing this? It is saying that he is thinking about creating a $30 billion program to build civilian energy produced by nuclear, a nuclear program. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Is this good? Yes or no? Let me know your thoughts. Now, they had originally said that that was what their program was for nuclear power. But in order to get that, they just needed to enrich the uranium up to 3%. Iran went all the way up to 60% and only needed to get to 90% to get to nuclear warheads, weapons for nuclear warheads. And they said that they were only a week or two away from getting to that point. Man, let me know your thoughts. They're saying that this is under consideration right now by the Trump administration. But developments in Iran might obstruct such a move. Now, on Wednesday, Iran's parliament approved a bill to stop cooperation with the global nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, or the IAEA. If it is implemented, it would mean that Iran is no longer committed to allowing nuclear inspectors into their sites. Israel has said that its offensive against Iran was necessary to thwart what it claims are Iranian plans to develop nuclear weapons. Iran has always insisted that its nuclear program is only intended for civilian purposes. The U.S. became directly involved in the conflict last weekend, striking facilities in Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, before Trump sought to rapidly mediate a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Now, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said intelligence gathered by the U.S. and Israel indicated that the strikes significantly damaged the nuclear program, setting it back by years. A leaked preliminary Pentagon assessment downplayed the significance of the damage and said that the U.S. strikes only set Iran's nuclear program back by a few months. The leak has been dismissed by the administration, and this is what I shared with you just, I think, yesterday or the day before. We had heard the Pentagon come out and say, no, that it did not destroy the facilities as bad as we thought. Trump said that this was a lie, trying to undermine his efforts and the Air Force's efforts, and that it was absolutely obliterated. The facilities by Iran for nuclear enrichment were obliterated. Yet we're hearing the Pentagon come out and say something different. We're hearing the Supreme Leader come out and say something different, saying, no, it just set us back, but it did not devastate us. But now we're also hearing in this report today that one of Iran's leaders is saying, no, it was devastating what unfolded. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Iran's health ministry said 610 people lost their lives during what they're calling the 12-day war, the 12 days of Israel airstrikes, while Israeli authorities said 28 lost their lives in Israel. There you have it, you guys. Man, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now, this comes, as I let you know as well, the Supreme Leader has resurfaced to warn against future U.S. attacks in his first statement since the ceasefire, and they are saying that they're concerned about sleeper cell attacks in the United States. And let me know in the comments, are you concerned about sleeper cell attacks? If so, put yes. If no, put no. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But let's take a look at this video footage that came out with more information regarding this top Iranian official undermining the Supreme Leader's claims on the nuclear damage that was done in Iran. Let's go ahead and take a look.
All right, we got an alert. House lawmakers will receive a classified briefing today on the successful U.S. strikes on Tehran's nuclear program.
So this comes as Iran's foreign minister makes new comments on the damage to their nuclear facility.
So let's get right to Mike Tobin, who is live in Israel. He's in Tel Aviv. Hey, Mike.
Good morning, Ainsley. Good morning, gang. We're still in the mode of determining the extent of damage done to Iran's nuclear program by this 12-day war. Former U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice spoke with Brett Baier last night and said it was irresponsible to leak and publish the information from that early low-confidence intelligence report. She said that the Iranian nuclear program has indeed been set back and the entire region changed by 20 months of war since October 7th.
When you look at what the Israelis were able to do to Hezbollah, what they were able to do to Hamas, the significant efforts against the Iranian military establishment, against scientists, this really is a now crippled Iran. And a crippled Iran is good for the region.
Are you looking to sell your house as is without the hassle of costly repairs?
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi spoke on Iranian state TV and undermined what was said by the Grand Ayatollah. He said significant damage was indeed done to Iran's nuclear program.
I must say that the damage is excessive and serious. But for the inspectors to visit, that is a decision that must be made. And in my opinion, in accordance with the law of the parliament, the Supreme National Security Council should make this decision.
Araghchi also countered President Trump and said there are no plans for talks between Iranian and U.S. representatives. Now, the Guardian Council of Iran passed a measure that would ban cooperation with Iran and the UN nuclear watchdog, the IAEA. The Director General of the IAEA says that would put Iran outside of international law. Guys, back to you.
So, Mike, is there a sense that we might have a new Iran? Is anyone thinking that, or we just think we have a Iran that's been knocked back?
Well, I think it's very significant that you have the foreign minister on state TV undermining what was said by the Grand Ayatollah. You wouldn't have seen that in the past. It seems to be an evolution toward modernization if you have someone looking practically at the situation and giving an evaluation, as opposed to the usual grand bellicose statements that you get out of Iranian leaders.
You know, Mike, I was looking at all the Iranian activists that I follow, and a lot of people pointed out how much the Ayatollah has aged just over the past, before the strike and after the strike. He doesn't look so well. Did you recognize that?
I didn't really recognize that. I just noticed the fact that he didn't come out for a long time. But I think that was somewhat old-fashioned, where you have so many people in these days of social media reacting very quickly to things. I think the Grand Ayatollah thought he had his time, he could take his time coming out to make a public statement. It took him a little while, but I think that's just because he's old school.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much. Yesterday, we had the press briefing at the last hour of our show. It lasted about 45 minutes with Pete Hegseth and the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Raising Cane. What a great name for a general. And he really outlined everything that happened. He talked about what happened at our military base in Qatar. He talked about these pilots, and then we also know about the soldiers or the seamen that were in the submarine. It's incredible how this was all pulled off, and with such precision. He detailed how the strike was conducted, and he spoke about the emotional moment when those American pilots came back to the United States. Listen.
When the crews went to work on Friday, they kissed their loved ones goodbye, not knowing when or if they'd be home. Late on Saturday night, their families became aware of what was happening. And on Sunday, when those jets returned from Whiteman, their families were there. Flags flying and tears flowing. I have chills literally talking about this. The jets rejoined into a formation of 4 airplanes, followed by a formation of 3, and came up overhead Whiteman, proudly in the traffic pattern, pitching out to land right over the base, and landing to the incredible cheers of their families who sacrifice and serve right alongside their family members. Like I said, there were a lot of flags and a lot of tears. One commander told me this is a moment in the lives of our families that they will never forget. That, my friends, is what America's Joint Force does.
It was a patriotic moment, and there was 2 parts of the press conference that I really enjoyed. It was the fact that he was so eloquent in how he explained the mission, and we had Jack Keane on, who has been a legend for a while within the military community of explaining things. He said, I've never seen a press conference in the Pentagon to explain a mission so well. And then the second layer was having the 4-star as well as the Secretary of Defense praise the men and women that completed this mission, giving them praise.
Guys, I don't care what the initial report said, there's a lot of damage done.
There it is.
And for 14 years, they've been working on this. They didn't have the type of bomb when they started this, and they didn't know what they were dealing with in terms of nuclear facilities. But some of these groups, sympathetic to us and the West and looking to work against the Ayatollah, some of the same groups that allowed the intelligence to flow and allowed those commanders to be killed and the Quds Force to be assassinated, were able to provide detailed schemes of what Fordo looked like and what Natanz looked like. So they knew about it. They worked on it. They did the prototypes. Think about this. People started this and retired during the mission, just waiting to see what president and at what point were going to actually be forced to take action. Then at the last minute, he finds that they're putting cement in the shafts. Right. So they must have figured, wow, the way they can blow up this thing is through the shaft. So they adjusted. So they did it. There's no way this thing is not blown up. And you have the IAEA head. The IAEA head says the centrifuges are definitely blown up. And Iran's foreign minister conceded that our nuclear installations have been badly damaged. So I think the issue of how much damage is not even worth discussing.
Right.
The courage to make the decision and where we go from here really should be where we go, because the Ayatollah, according to people that watch him, they say that he's inspirational. He's usually smooth. Here he was stumbling and he was not clear, and he seemed to be a lack of energy in his delivery. That, if we pick that up in the West,
right.
Can you imagine what the people of Iran think?
And Brian, real quickly to your point about they find out about that concrete, that just shows you the human intelligence was so good on the ground that they even got the measurement of that concrete so our guys could adjust their plan when they blew that part off.
Right, so there were those 3 holes, the vents, and they said that Iran, if you didn't get the press conference yesterday, covered them up with cement. Our first strike blew off that cement, and then they were able to shoot number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 down into that center hole, and they said destroy the nuclear facility. And Donald Trump said if Iran attempts to repair their nuclear program, again, that the U.S. will not hesitate to just launch another strike. And then Senator John Kennedy said, and if Tehran tries to do that, then Israel will know. Their intelligence is incredible. They're watching everything on the ground, and they know what's happening.
Although there were 700 executions in Iran by people that they say were spies, including some, they said 3 Mossad agents. I don't know if it's true, but it's, you would think that they would be trying to get to the bottom of it. The other thing was the foreign minister's going to China.
Right.
And he wants to establish, China left him, they buy their oil, but they didn't do anything to defend him. We have to think about, what if China starts coming in with nuclear components of a nuclear program along with North Korea? Do we stop those ships in the Persian Gulf?
It's going to be a big debate.
Remember, China sent in the five airplanes into Iran right before this strike. What were they doing there? What were they taking with them?
That's right.
Those are some of the questions.
But the Secretary of State said he believes it was people. So I'm just saying that's what Marco Rubio said. So because I think they were getting people out.
We're going to be getting that full report sometime soon.
Well, there you have it, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now, we're going to be taking a look here because we are hearing that one of the major concerns right now is the threats coming out and sleeper cell attacks against the United States. So let's take a look at some of these articles. Then I'm going to play for you some video footage on sleeper cells and how we've heard that just, I think it was over the weekend, they had arrested 17 Iranian nationalists. And I think that there has been, I can't remember how many hundreds that they have been deporting out of the United States since Trump got in, getting Iranians out of here because they're not sure if these illegals are here because they're trying to have a better life in the U.S. or if they're trying to cause some serious harm and they are parts of sleeper cells. Let's take a look at this article here so you can see it for yourself. The Supreme Leader, Iran's Khamenei, resurfaces to warn against future U.S. attacks in the U.S. in his first statement since the ceasefire. And you can see this coming out in the last 24 hours, just yesterday. It says, Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, said Thursday that his country had delivered a slap to America's face. So the Supreme Leader is claiming that Iran slapped America in the face by striking a U.S. airbase in Qatar and warned against further attacks in his first public comments since a ceasefire agreement with Israel. So the Supreme Leader is telling Iran that we slapped America in the face, we defeated Israel and the U.S., and more attacks will be on the way. The Supreme Leader's pre-recorded speech that aired on Iranian state television, his first appearance since June 19th, was filled with warnings and threats directed towards the United States and Israel, the Islamic Republic's longtime adversaries. So they are threatening the United States and Israel. Now, the 86-year-old, a skilled orator known for his forceful addresses to the country's more than 90 million people, appeared more tired than he had just a week ago, speaking in a hoarse voice and occasionally stumbling over his words. And we heard this just from the news reporters as well, saying that he was very apparently disorganized, unable to speak, did not seem like his usual self. They said likely because of the fact that he's been hiding in a bunker for the past week or so, and Iran has been absolutely devastated by these attacks, yet he's trying to issue this statement of strength. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, the Supreme Leader downplayed the U.S.'s strikes on the 3 Iranian nuclear sites on Sunday using bunker buster bombs and cruise missiles, saying that U.S. President Donald Trump, who said that the attack completely and fully obliterated Iran's nuclear program, had exaggerated the impacts. Now, they could not achieve anything significant, the Supreme Leader said. So the Supreme Leader said that the United States didn't achieve anything in their attacks. Missing from his more than 10-minute video message was any mention of Iran's nuclear program and the status of their facilities and centrifuges after extensive U.S. and Israeli airstrikes. His characterization on Monday's strike on the U.S. airbase of Qatar contrasted with U.S. accounts of it as a limited attack with no casualties. The White House responded to Khamenei's video, accusing him of trying to save face. Any common sense, open-minded person knows the truth about the precision strikes on Saturday night. Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt told reporters Thursday they were wildly successful. The head of the UN nuclear watchdog, International Atomic Energy Agency Director Rafael Grossi, reiterated Thursday that the damage done by Israel and the United States strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities is very, very, very considerable, and that he can only assume the centrifuges are not operational. I think annihilated is too much, but it suffered enormous damage, Grossi told French broadcaster RFI. The IAEA has not been allowed to visit any of the Iranian facilities to do an independent assessment of the damage. Iran's foreign minister spokesperson, Ismail Baghahi, also conceded Wednesday that our nuclear installations have been badly damaged. That is for sure. So you have Iranian leaders here saying, no, those attacks were devastating. Reading on, it says, Khamenei has not been seen in public since taking shelter in a secret location after the outbreak of the war on June 13th, when Israel attacked Iranian nuclear facilities and targeted top military commanders and scientists. After Sunday's attack on Iran's nuclear facilities, Trump was able to help negotiate a ceasefire that came into effect on Tuesday. Iranian leader warns U.S. against further attacks. Khamenei claimed that the U.S. had only intervened in the war because it felt that if it did not intervene, the Zionist regime would be utterly destroyed. It entered the war to save them, yet it gained nothing, he said. He said his country's attack on Monday on the U.S. base of Qatar was significant, since it shows Iran has access to important U.S. centers in the region and can act against them whenever it deems necessary. Now, the Islamic Republic was victorious and in retaliation delivered a hand slap to America's face, he said, adding, this action can be repeated in the future. Should any aggression occur, the enemy will definitely pay a heavy price. So here you have the Supreme Leader saying that Iran slapped America in the face, we will do it again, and that if the United States tries to mess with Iran again, that the United States will pay a heavy price. Wow, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now, reading on, it says, Trump has dismissed the retaliatory attack as a very weak response, saying that the U.S. had been warned by Iran in advance and emphasizing that there had been no casualties. With the ceasefire, life slowly returns to normal in Iran. On Thursday, yesterday, Iran partially reopened its airspace, which had been closed since the war began. The shops in Tehran's capital began to reopen, with traffic returning to the streets. Majid Arkavan, spokesperson for the Ministry of Roads and Urban Development, said Iran had reopened its airspace for the eastern half of the country to domestic and international flights, including those transiting Iranian airspace. Earlier this week, Tehran said 606 people had lost their lives in the conflict in Iran, with 5,332 people wounded. The Washington-based human rights activist group released figures Wednesday suggesting Israeli strikes on Iran had ended the lives of at least 1,054 people and wounded 4,476. The group, which has provided detailed casualty figures from multiple rounds of unrest in Iran, said 470 of those who lost their lives were civilians, 318 were security forces. At least 28 people who lost their lives were in Israel, and more than 1,000 wounded, according to officials there. During the 12-day war, Iran fired more than 550 missiles at Israel with a 90% interception rate, according to new statistics released by Israeli authorities Thursday. Israel, meantime, hit more than 720 Iranian military infrastructure targets and 8 nuclear-related sites, Israel said. Trump has also asserted that American and Iranian officials will talk next week, giving rise to cautious hope for long-term peace. Iran has not acknowledged that any such talk would take place, though U.S. Mideast envoy Steve Witkoff has said that there has been direct and indirect communication between the countries. A 6th round of U.S.-Iran negotiations was scheduled for earlier this month in Oman, but was canceled after Israel attacked Iran. Iran has insisted that it will not give up its nuclear program. In a vote underscoring the tough path ahead, its parliament agreed Wednesday to fast-track a proposal that would effectively stop the country's cooperation with the IAEA, which has monitored the program for years. Wow. So let me know your thoughts. We're going to see if these are going to work out here, if things are going to come to fruition with a ceasefire, and if it's going to stay in place. And again, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Is this the end of the war? Are we going to see a ceasefire and peace will be in place? If you think so, put yes. If you think no, put no. Let me know your thoughts. But Iran issuing out these warnings, do you think they're just trying to save face? Do you think that they're actually going to retaliate? There are warnings of sleeper cells in the United States. Is this the end of the war? If you think yes, put yes. If you think no, put no. Oh, and if you haven't done so yet, take a second, hit that like button, helps support the channel. But let's take a look at some video footage regarding sleeper cells in the United States. This is a major warning. We heard 2 warnings coming out. Attacks on U.S. military bases and attacks on U.S. soil from sleeper cells, groups that are here waiting to do attacks on U.S. cities. Let's go ahead and take a look.
ICE is at the forefront of making sure that we're rounding up all these individuals or attempting to locate the ones that did get in. You have one that with admitted ties to Hezbollah. We also arrested a former sniper from a hostile country who snuck into the United States. So those are the type of individuals we want to locate.
So you hear it there. That's Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons talking about the work his agency is doing, trying to find and apprehend Iranian nationals in the U.S., given concerns of potential sleeper cells here. And ICE has been busy. Federal sources telling Fox in the last week alone, ICE has arrested 130 Iranian nationals all across the United States. And ICE currently has 670 Iranian nationals in ICE detention. Now, we talk about some of those people who are detained right now. You just heard Todd Lyons explain some of it. This guy, a former Iranian Army sniper who had his military ID card on him at the time of his arrest. This guy, a former IRGC member with suspected ties to Hezbollah. This man had a gun in his waistband, and ICE says another one of them was a known or suspected terrorist. So they are going out and they're going into overdrive, trying to track down these potential threats. For more on this, we want to bring in former Acting ICE Director Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, ICE is really cranking it up when it comes to finding these Iranians. Your thoughts?
Yeah, they're doing a great job, and Director Lyons and Tom Homan are doing a fantastic job focusing in and getting these people locked up and eventually removed because they see them as a danger. And it does show a drastic change. And unfortunately, it's a change from the previous administration where they seem to put public safety and national security secondary to their open borders agenda. And I think you were reporting earlier, there were 1,500 Iranians stopped during the Biden administration, and they let in over half of them. We also know that they let in 99 people that were stopped at the border. This is a Biden administration that were on the terror watch list, and they still let them into the country. So it's a shame that this administration, the current one, has to play cleanup for people that should have never been allowed in to begin with.
Yeah, a lot of work for ICE to do. Definitely want to get your thoughts on this other big story we've been talking about in regards to ICE. I'm sure you've seen it by now. The vice mayor of a city in Southern California, a city called Cudahy, went on social media, posted a video, then deleted it, in which she called for 18th Street and Florencia 13 gang members to defend their territory against ICE. Take a listen to this.
I want to know where all the cholos are at in Los Angeles. 18th Street, Florencia. Where's the leadership at? They tag everything up, claiming hood. And now that your hood's being invaded by the biggest gang there is, it's everyone else who's not about the gang life that's out there protesting and speaking up. We're out there like fighting our turf, protecting our people. And like, where you at?
So that was Cynthia Gonzalez, and her attorney has now put out a statement defending her. She says in part, quote, Gonzalez issued a challenge to the Latino community. Join the thousands of Angelenos already peacefully organizing in response to ongoing enforcement actions. Gonzalez in no way encouraged anyone to engage in violence. Jonathan, a challenge to the Latino community. She directly appealed to Florencia and 18th Street and ended the video by saying to the leadership of those gangs, get your effing members in order and defend your turf.
Wow. Let me know your thoughts, you guys. And we're hearing that this is a concern right now with ICE. But one of the things that they're trying to do is to get people out that they think could cause harm to the United States. Now, if you are glad to see ICE and Donald Trump doing what they're doing, do me a favor, drop a 47 in the comments for support for the Trump administration and what they're doing to try to keep America safe, to get these Iranian nationalists that could be potentially causing harm to the U.S. out. Drop a 47, hit the like button, and let's take a look at some articles that have been coming out regarding the concerns of this unfolding here on U.S. soil with these sleeper cells. Take a look here. College campuses, they're saying, could be ground zero for Iranian sleeper cells plotting to harm Americans. Experts warn Iranian operatives could be leveraging anti-Israeli protests after Biden's border policy enabled terrorist entry into the United States. It says, as the threat of Iranian retaliation looms, and this is what I've been sharing with you over the past 24 hours, the threats, the potential for terror proxies to leverage New Age methods remains front of mind for experts, pointing to anti-Semitic campuses, protests, social media propaganda as possible methods of creating chaos inside of the United States. After strikes on Iran's key nuclear sites by the United States forces on Saturday, the Department of Homeland Security issued a National Terrorism Advisory System bulletin warning of the heightened risk of domestic terrorism from Iranian-backed or domestic attackers. So again, just to clarify, this is not in the Middle East. This is here in the United States. They're concerned of attacks on U.S. soil. The likelihood of violent extremists in the homeland independently mobilizing to violence in response to the conflict would likely increase if Iranian leadership issued a religious ruling calling for retaliatory violence against targets in the homeland, the bulletin said. Sleeper cells are groups planted within a country by a foreign government to live and work among citizens with the ultimate goal of eventually carrying out a terror attack or politically motivated act of violence. Due to the depleted funding and resources, terror organizations such as Hezbollah or Hamas have been forced to sit this one out when it comes to aiding Iran in its attacks, significantly depleting the regime's show of force when looking to retaliate against the United States and Israel, according to Barak Sinir, a senior fellow at the Henry Jackson Society. Iran's ability to react militarily is increasingly minimalized, Sinir told Fox News Digital. We have to remember that Iran's terrorist proxies, they have been severely degraded as well. Now, in response to the loss of Iran's usual terrorist proxies, Sinir points to the government utilizing sleeper cells to carry out its agenda on the soil of its adversaries. Iran will be seeking to flex by activating sleeper cells in the United States, Britain, Europe, or even in Asia, he said. It's about conducting surveillance and then targeting either community centers or policy officials. So Iran is not new to this game. The threat of Americans' safety has U.S. officials on high alert, and the DHS and the FBI are ramping up their security measures throughout the country. Since the bombing of Iran's nuclear sites over the weekend, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, arrested 11 Iranian nationalists in the country illegally, including an alleged sniper in the Iranian army, according to the DHS, which is what we just saw from the video footage we just watched. It is our duty to keep the nation safe and informed, especially during times of conflict, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said in a statement on Fox News Digital. The ongoing Israel-Iran conflict brings the possibility of increased threat to the homeland in the form of possible cyber attacks, acts of violence, and anti-Semitic hate crimes. The FBI declined Fox News Digital's request for comments. And here you can see another clip. ICE arrests Iranian nationals in the United States. You can see states where they are going right now. California, Arizona, Colorado, Texas, Missouri, Minnesota, Illinois, Mississippi, Alabama, Maryland, New York, among those cities we are seeing, it says, alleged former Iranian sniper, terror watch list members among those arrested by ICE. Now, a number of Lebanese, Iranian, and South American operatives with Iranian connections have come through the borders, Senior said, referencing the Biden administration's previous open border policies. There's just no way of tracking them. However, Senior also raised the possibility of Iranian operatives commandeering anti-Israeli campus protests throughout the U.S. while using cyber warfare to launch disinformation campaigns on social media. Much of the opposition to U.S. foreign policy towards Israel and Gaza has been people that have been coming to the country on student visas, Senior said. They're not U.S. nationals, and yet they're able to create a disturbance and contribute to an enormous disruption, he said. Now, in response to the ongoing anti-Israeli protests on college campuses, President Donald Trump has ordered his administration to revoke hundreds of student visas belonging to known activists. And again, if you're glad to see this, Donald Trump saying, hey, if you're here with a visa and you are burning American flags, shouting death to America, a part of protests that are anti-American and anti-Israel, we're going to get you out of here. We're going to deport you. You're here on a visa. You don't have the same rights as a U.S. citizen. We're going to ship you out. If you like the sound of that, drop a 47 in the comments and hit that like button. However, the risk of Iranian sleeper cells pales in comparison to the possibility of an individual radicalized by the regime choosing to carry out an attack on U.S. soil, according to Paul Moreau, a retired NYPD executive officer with the Intelligence Operations and Analysis Bureau. If Iran was looking to insert an asset into America, why would you go through all of the porous southern border, he said to Fox News Digital, insert foreign agents here and embed them in these campuses in protests. The campus protests provide the Iranian government an attractive target to embed with the primary goal of creating disruption and dissent on American soil, he said. They can be the recipients of funds. They can contextualize what is going on for you. They can tell you who the big players are, how the disruption could go, and it saps our blood and treasure here on the home front and creates chaos. Like Senior, Morrow pointed to the possibility of the Iranian regime using social media and online platforms to radicalize Americans in an attempt to build homegrown terrorists from the ground up. That is a real low-rent, easy-to-run operation, he said. You get somebody who is leading a slipping down life, who doesn't have much of an identity, somebody who is looking for a persona, and you give them one. It's subtle, and it's a seduction process, he said. Now, while the use of propaganda and targeted social media is historically aligned with ISIS, Moreau pointed out changing digital times affecting how attacks can be waged. Traditionally, that's not an Iranian MO, he said. That's not a Hezbollah MO. But we're in a new world now. However, the possibility of terrorist groups to come together with new strategies to use against a common enemy remains front of mind. Right now, the enemy of the enemy is a friend, he said. You could have the kind of element that previously people in remnants of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Syria, Iraq could be figuring right now that America is going to be a soft target because you have all this unrest among the progressives. While the bulletin released by the Department of Homeland Security does not cite any specific threats to the American people, local, state, or federal law enforcement agencies throughout the country, they are on high alert as they encourage people to remain vigilant with tensions between the U.S. and Iran continuing to rise. There are no rules of engagement to a rogue regime like Iran, he said. Everything is fair game. Western democracies don't operate in that manner, and it's alien to us. But that is how Iran operates. Wow. Let me know your thoughts. Are you concerned, as we are hearing that right now there is a ceasefire underway between Israel and Iran, but there are warnings coming out that Iran is still threatening the United States and Israel, and there are still sleeper cells here, and we're actually seeing some of them being arrested right now And the concerns are that these sleeper cells still could be activated by Iran in retaliation for what has unfolded. And that is why right now we are seeing ICE attempting to go around and rally these people up, get them out, find them, and make sure that there are no attacks on U.S. soil. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, we will see what unfolds. I will keep you up to date here on the channel, but that is the latest coming out. And like I said, as more unfolds, I'll be sure to get the sources, put them on the screen. I have all these hyperlinked down below so you can click them, read them for yourself, put everything on the screen, try to hold myself to the highest level of accountability so you can see the dates, the sources, and know and rest assured that this is the latest. But if you appreciate that, do me a favor. If you haven't done so yet, hit that like button, subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. Why not? And I will keep you up to date as more unfolds. Now, in addition to that, if you haven't subscribed yet, you might want to do so because I've got information coming out of the 15 top cities most likely to get hit by nuclear weapons in the event that we roll into World War III, which is a major concern right now. So I'm getting information on that. It's apparently a new list that has been released. I shared with you all the lists as they have come out, but we've got new ones coming out. So I will be sure to do some research. Keep an eye out for that video. I'll likely do it today or tomorrow. So that way you know the latest that is going on. But that is it, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll keep you up to speed as more rolls out. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.